This is 007 Radio. Strap yourself in, because we'll be going on a ride deep to the heart of Earth's mysteries.
Well, it's nice to finally see you.
Yeah,
Um,
lovely.
I've been going through your work and some of your interviews. You sound like an amazingly interesting person.
Oh, well, so do you. I
Uh,
love all the sustainability that you do and your all of your group. I don't know exactly what to call you, your organization. It looks amazing.
well, we got a
Beautiful.
lot of good people that wanted to come together to make this change happen here in Montreal, and well, we got to start it in one place before we spread it. So I guess it was just easier since a lot of the group was already here.
Wow. Well, it's beautiful. Congratulations. It's really beautiful.
All right, thanks. What I'd really like to talk about, and I'll start it off in a bit, but I just want to give you a heads up. If it's okay if I talk to you about how this all started, how you got into energy medicine to begin with, because I'm sure it didn't just start. It must have started at some point where you really got thrusted into this.
Yeah, I always think that it just started, but you're right, nothing just happens. I was raised very holistically, so I wasn't around a lot of doctors growing up. Our primary care doctor was a chiropractor, and when we were really sick, we would go see a Chinese herbal medicine doctor. So I really wasn't comfortable in conventional medicine, but when I was married, and my ex-husband said, what if I were to die and how are you going to take care of the kids? Because I hadn't finished college, and he goes, I think you should go to nursing school. And of course, I thought he was nuts, but I made a deal that if I took some classes and I liked it, I would pursue it, and I loved it. I loved nursing. Although my family was kind of shocked that I chose a conventional approach, and then even more shocked when I decided to specialize in oncology. Giving some of the harshest chemicals on the planet to people when I was raised to put organic food in my body.
Okay, so
So,
let me just start this then. If this is how we're
yeah.
going to jump right in, uh,
Okay.
I'm here with Mary. Could you please help me with your last name, just so I don't butcher it?
Yeah, it's Manuchehri.
And she is an energy healer and someone who has been involved with Reiki. Am I right?
Reiki, yes.
You would call okay. So the path that you went on was Reiki, and what I'd love to ask you is how this all started.
Sure. So I was an oncology nurse working at a local hospital near my home. I'm loving every moment of it, even though, uh, you know, being raised very holistically, it was just odd that I was having so much fun working in conventional medicine, but I was. And I think that feeling your joy is what helps people to discover their passions and maybe more of their purposes, or where we all have talent, because all of us have talent in our lives, most of it undiscovered, unfortunately, I think, for many people. And so while I was an oncology nurse, I began to have really weird experiences. I began to hear and see and feel my patients' organs talking to me. And because of the spiritual upbringing that I had, I wasn't freaked out. I was like, wow, this is really weird. But I didn't go screaming from the room, or run to a therapist or anything of that nature. I just got very excited and started meditating quite a bit, actually. And every single day there was another mounting paranormal experience, and I was just loving every moment of it. But eventually, it was happening throughout my entire day, so it was something I couldn't turn off. And every day there was another interesting experience. Eventually, I went to my nurse supervisor because I was a little worried that somebody might code on my floor. I was a charge nurse most days that I worked, and then I would be staring at a blue ball that was spinning in my abdomen, or these really adorable golden kind of mud structure pyramids that would be spinning all around me. That I could be seeing just as like when I'm talking to you. I would be standing on the floor of the hospital, chatting it up with a therapist or a doctor or a family member, and at the same time having a completely different experience that nobody really was aware of. So I was kind of concerned that if someone coded, I wouldn't go and get the crash cart in a fast fashion, that maybe I would procrastinate or be distracted or maybe not even notice the signs of a seriously distressed patient. And so I went to my nurse supervisor for some advice, and I really thought she was going to suspend me and order a psych eval. But she didn't. She said that I think you're seeing energy and you need to start laying your hands on our patients. So I know, right? Really shocked me actually. And so about 3 days later, I did. I picked the healthiest patient on the floor. It wasn't even a cancer patient. It was a surgical patient that was on the floor because of overflow in the hospital. And when I laid my hands on her, I just had the most profound experience. I had never studied chakras or energy medicine. I knew nothing about it. But yet I saw these gorgeous orbs inside her body that lined the center of it. And the nurse supervisor, when I told her of my experiences, she said, I think you're seeing chakras. I'm like, I don't even know what a chakra is. And so I saw these beautiful orbs lining the center of her body. And when I focused on them, they would turn into cones. And that's when I really had great, detailed, focused information of her organs and the messages that were kind of trapped in her body, like pain, emotional pain that had somehow then developed into disease for her. And I could hear and see the history of her whole life from childhood to her adulthood. She was around 60 years of age, and why she had gotten sick. And because of the feelings that she hadn't expressed that had stayed inside of her body.
Now I have to
And
ask you
pretty
before
much,
you go forward,
yeah,
when you had seen and heard these things, are they just experienced in an instant, or is it a slow telling of a story through a voice?
well, it's kind of like all knowing. It's seeing, hearing, and feeling, and it's fast.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
super, super fast. So I'm seeing colors, I'm seeing images, I'm hearing, and then there's a knowingness that I'm having inside. And it's so quick that after a while I was working on this first patient, I couldn't even keep up with the information, and it was almost as if her body knew that I couldn't, and it then it abruptly stopped, and I remember making this big sound like, you know. But after that moment, that's a great question, by the way. I was hooked, and I touched hundreds of people in the hospital. In fact, I was very lucky. Doctors and nurses supported me. The doctors didn't always want to know what I was doing, but they would come out and they go, hey, could you go and do that thing, whatever you're doing, to Mrs. Jones, because she really liked what you did the other day and she wants you to go do it again. So that's pretty much how my career started. After a while, people started showing up at my house unannounced, and they would lay on my couch because I didn't have a massage table. And I started to, develop my definition of what energy medicine means per my perception, and of course what conventional medicine feels about health and healing.
So you seem to have a great supporting cast. You went to your supervisor and she could have said, "Hey, you know what? I have some pills that might fix that for you." But instead, she led you on the proper path, and she happened to be, I guess, an omen that you had just followed through on. So you had mentioned that your family had taught you a lot of holistic healing. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and was it different from an average child?
Yeah, I would say it was very different. My parents were hippies, and protested against the Vietnam War when I was a kid. So we were dragged to all the protests because they were students at the University of Washington. In fact, my mother, after my parents divorced, she even dated a Black Panther for a while. So my family was very non-conventional. We ate organic food. We did not see conventional doctors unless, we needed a bone set, or
Mhm.
once I had an asthma attack and I know I went into the hospital to get a nub treatment. But we saw chiropractors and Chinese herbal medicine doctors, and my family bought, food that's really popular now. We have beautiful organic grocery stores now all over the world, and Canada's always been a little bit ahead of us, I think, on that. But when I was a kid, we did a lot of our grocery shopping in houses, in basements, because people would have nutritious food kind of set in, and we would buy a lot of our food supplies in really weird, environments, not the regular U.S. grocery stores that you used to see. Yeah.
So you're meeting interesting people your whole life.
Yeah, true. That's very true. Yeah.
Now, what I'd like to ask you is, do you think that the proper nutrition just led to something that humans are capable of doing anyways?
Oh, you mean that the experiences that I had? Do you think it's related to nutrition?
I think that you might have had a proper human upbringing, and in
Oh,
that way, the extraordinary start to become a little more ordinary for you.
I think absolutely. I think it's really hard to support our awareness of ourself, our spiritual growth and development, our psychic ability, because everyone's multisensory. We're meant at the very least to be intuitive for our own being,
Hmm.
you know, whether that's choosing a healthcare practitioner or where to build a beautiful, sustainable home or what to plant in the spring or the winter or whatever, you know, whatever it is that we need to do, we need to be able to trust our instincts. And it's very hard for our body to be responsive in a healing and positive way if we're toxic. You know, if it's working hard to break down, you know, particles and chemicals and substitutes from delicious, healthy eating, then we don't have the energy really to progress, I think, in a whole human way, as you suggested. Yes.
Now you spoke about energy, so when someone does come in and sit on your couch or lay down on your couch, do you have to build up your energy so that you can start to work with the person that is in the room?
No, I don't. I think that when you do something you love, your energy is just charged. And of course, as my role has changed now that I teach and write and lecture and all these other things in my life, I can't see as many patients as I used to. I still have a full-time practice. I still see about 16 people a week. But that I used to see 25. So, you know, so things have definitely changed. So no, I don't. It feeds me. In fact, when I go on vacation for long periods of time, I'm like, oh, I can't wait till I get my hands on someone because I feel like my energy is dropping a little bit and I'll feel an incredible charge of bliss, you know, when I connect with someone's soul. But no, I don't have
I'm sure the look in their eyes after you're done with them must be enough to charge you, eh?
to. Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's something about connecting with another human being because as a nurse, of course, I touched thousands of patients. I mean, I put my stethoscope practically all over their body and put IVs in them and did other invasive procedures. But it's a very different experience to be with someone with intention. You know, that it's not about poking or prodding. It's really just about being present with them. And it is an incredible experience.
And the more that you've practiced this, I'm assuming the more skills you developed. So there must be something like past life regressions that started happening at some point where you started to see not just this life, but their past lives where some of the illnesses may have been locked up.
Oh yeah, actually, before I even started my own full-time practice, well, even part-time initially, I started to see my own past lives because I was really kind of scared, you know, that even though I was raised holistically, I didn't want to be exactly like my family. I wanted to be normal, you know, because I felt like everybody was really weird and I just wanted to be a regular person. And so I married an engineer, and then of course I became a nurse, and I still live in the family home, even though I'm not married any longer. And my kids always call it Pleasantville because it's very, you know, very kind of normal American neighborhood. And the funny thing, of course, is that you know this is my normal. Who I am now is really more my normal. So I did see a lot of my own past lives that had to clear through my body so that I wouldn't get terrified that something was going to happen to me because of history of when people became seers or psychic or insightful. It wasn't always safe in some of our history around the world. And yes, that's very true. When I work on patients, I do see their past lives. And my job is to integrate, to help them integrate, to help them let go. So I tell everyone everything that I see, hear, and feel when I work on a person. I record actually all my sessions too and give them a copy of it. And so I do a lot of working in the ethers of previous lifetimes so that we can let go of them and be present, you know, fully present in the century that we are now occupying mostly anyway.
When you said that some of these seers had experienced bad things, are you referring to, like, let's say a witch trial where they would have burned someone who showed this kind of skill?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, when I first started to do work, I was very excited because from my perspective, it seemed very effortless. People just started showing up at my house, and then I took a Reiki workshop, and then I started a business, and you know, so things were rocking and rolling really, really quickly. And one of my neighbors, who's a devoutly religious person, came to me and was very concerned about my well-being because I thought I was, you know, too involved in the occult. And
Yeah,
after
because Jesus didn't put his hands on anybody to heal them.
really, that's the path of Christ, right? I mean, he is the ultimate healer, really. Um, but anyway, it's like her words scared the heck out of me. Like I was, you know, here I was trying to be so normal and fit into this, you know, kind of normal American culture. And now that I was finally really happy, that my neighbors were questioning, or one of my neighbors was questioning my choices, and I had this image. I was meditating in my home, and I actually I got up and stood out of the meditation and walked to the living room window, and I literally saw, and it wasn't real, but it was a past life image. People wearing like cloaks and hoods and holding torches and surrounding my house.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, I was really scared. And it was in that moment that I was guided, because I believe in spirit guides. I believe that we have beings from other dimensions that are with us all the time, helping us and guiding us and giving us inspiration and available to offer us truth. And so I was told at that time to look down at my body and reminded what century I was living in, that what part of the world I was living in, that it was a wonderful time to be a woman and to be mystical. And I even was said, even remind yourself how much money you have in the bank. Not that I had a ton, but it was like it was trying to make me feel safe and secure. And I did, and eventually the image or projection disappeared.
So in your past lives, do you show any signs of being this mystical person?
I've had a lot of visions of past lives, some of them that have to do with healing that were in Egypt, where there used to be a lot of mystery schools a long time ago. What I found out from my family, the current family that I'm from, is that my great grandmother, and I knew she was a Cherokee Indian, but what I didn't know, I never met her physically anyway, is that she did healing. So she and her cousin, when they moved off of a reservation in Oklahoma City, they married two brothers, which were my great grandfather and his brother, my great uncle, and the women on the weekend they would do healings. People would come to the ranch and trade food or services for the hands-on work that they did and the healing packets that they made. So for the rest of my family, my uncles and my aunts are very conservative. My mother really became a hippie, really, in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. But they weren't at all surprised when I started having these experiences, because the stories of my great grandmother were well known. In fact, many of them would call me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're just like great grandmother Lucinda." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." So I felt really accepted actually in my family. So that was fortunate.
You had mentioned spirit guides, and a spirit guide is someone who comes along and is somewhat of an illusion given forth or a perception of your subconscious so that you can talk to yourself through this embodiment. Now, it doesn't happen to everyone, and it happens at a crucial stage. So, if you mind, do you mind telling us about your first experience with your spirit guide, and did he or she scare you?
Oh, yeah. Actually, none of this has scared me. I've been so, well, other than the torches, around the house. I've been really lucky that I haven't been frightened. I think because at a very young age, I read books like The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East and Seth Speaks in my early teens. So I wasn't scared. It's usually afterwards, after they say something, that's when I start to get nervous, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to go do this thing, which of course we don't. We have free will, we can do whatever we want. But when you've had that moment of calm and relaxation and feeling completely loved and energized, in your heart of hearts that following the advice is probably in your best interest. And I can say that I certainly wouldn't have the profession that I have today. I certainly would not have written a book. I never would have gotten divorced, which was a really good thing for our whole family, if I hadn't listened to the experience of my guides. So the very first experience I had, I was in meditation again, and I didn't even know what a spirit guide was. I had never heard the term, because remember, I wanted to be normal. So even though I had read certain books, I tried not to pay attention to everything that was happening in the house when I was growing up. Not a good idea. Anyway, so I was meditating, and I'm very visual and highly clairvoyant. And there was this beautiful stream in my mind, and I was walking it in deep, like Northwest woods. And all of a sudden, this man appeared on the opposite side of the stream, and he was walking with me. And he was quite handsome, actually. He looks like Sean Connery. He's really cute. And he was wearing this burlap robe, and I actually happened to like fashion, not too much, not in an insane way, but I happened, to like, I would say, contemporary fashion. And so I'm talking to him, and I'm like, why are you wearing that burlap robe? It's so itchy, which is kind of a silly question to be asking in this meditative moment. And he said to me, he goes, my dear, you are much more spiritual than you realize. And that was the first time I met him. I think, a constant in my life, as are several other spirit guides. And I'm so grateful for his input and his patience and his ability to know me, far deeper than I so far have the ability to know myself. I'm grateful for their awareness.
So you learned a great deal with your spirits guide, and obviously everyone always does. It led you on this path, and I want to ask you, at what point did you know that this was it? This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna drop nursing, and you were just gonna do it on your own.
Ah, yeah. I think I knew because I was having so much fun, and I really didn't know what I was doing, quite frankly. I still like to think that in the field of energy medicine, I don't know what I'm doing, because I think if once I decide that I do know, that I'm going to be stopping, this evolution of something that we're all starting to understand again, because I think it's been on the planet before in healthy ways that are common, and now it's something that we're having a rebirthing of. Um, I think it's when I walked into the hospital, I didn't want to be there anymore. And I loved nursing. I liked putting in IVs. I liked yelling at a few doctors. I loved every moment of it, actually. And so every time I walked on the hospital floor and I didn't feel that joy that I had been feeling before, I went, oh my gosh, this means I'm supposed to dump this and go do that weird thing that's making me 100 times happier. And I think the part that was most challenging for me is, in the midst of all of that, I was getting a divorce, and I was leaving my safe job. And a lot of people were telling me that I was crazy, because how am I going to support my children and pay the mortgage? And when I'm doing this weird thing, and maybe I'm not going to make enough money. But fortunately enough, everything just got better and better and better. And I'm really grateful that I'm here.
So it seems like a total transformation happened at that point.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, wow. And you had mentioned herbal plants and herbal medicine when you went to go see the Chinese doctor. Do you do you remember any of his knowledge, and do you use any of his knowledge?
Well, I don't know very much. I take Chinese herbs. I see an acupuncturist regularly. I have my own pharmacy of supplements. I'm much better with vitamins, so I'm not as knowledgeable. I should have studied naturopathic medicine. Is probably what I should have studied. I'm a big fan of adrenal health. Like taking herbs like holy basil and ashwagandha and Siberian ginseng and things of that nature for our bodies. When I'm working on people, I will hear remedies or things that I'm not even familiar with, and I will pass it on to my clients so that they can talk to their practitioner about the medications or the drugs that they're taking. Even in conventional medicine, I'll know when they've had too much. And fortunately, when people go back to their doctors for some weird reason, when they bring it up to their doctors actually do stop the medication. I'm always surprised when it happens. I go, "You're kidding, really?" Um, so, um, I'm not a professional holistic herbal or vitamin person, but at home I am. So I kind of caretake to my family in that way.
I guess much like humans, the plants also have an energy and a wave signature that helps the humans, depending on what part of their body is actually having a little bit of distress. Now, when you see the body, do you see the energy pass like an acupuncturist would see, or do you see more the eccentric rings? And anyway, I'm just gonna stop and let you describe it.
No, that's a great question. And I love how much you love plants, because you love plants.
A
I
lot.
mean,
I
you
run a
do?
seed company, so I mean I love plants quite a bit.
I didn't know that. Oh, I had no idea. Oh, yeah, no, because when you were talking, all I could see is all the plants around you and how much you're friends with them. Like they're your friends. They
I'm in the
are.
room where I grow the plants. That's why it's dark. It's dark
Oh,
outside, but light all around me.
oh my gosh. Well, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. For me, I do see the auric field. I do see the chakras. I do. I like to say, but I'm sure this isn't true, that I see a little bit of everything. So when someone comes to see me for the first time, I actually know nothing about the reason why they're coming to see me. So my assistant takes the phone call and the emails. I try not to read emails or be very careful about what I read because I don't want to have any preconceived idea about why someone's coming to see me. Because generally, if it's health related, which is about 45% of those that I see, 55% are well. They may have aches and pains or minor things, and they're working on perhaps discovering their passion or how to be in loving relationships or preventative health care or something of that nature. But for the 45% that I see that are sick, they've already probably seen just about everybody else, conventionally and holistically. I'm kind of the last person they see. And so I hope that I want my perception to be what will be perhaps the facilitator to them getting well. So I don't want to know anything about them. But as soon as I greet them in the living room, I already know a lot about them. I may see their dead relatives standing next to them, so I'm going to be doing medium work with them. I'll know how many guides they have, and how their guides are characteristically portrayed is an indication of what that person is meant to develop in their own being and their own psyche. And then I'll know most of the time, the health reason why they've come to see me. And my primary job, I think, is to find the emotional reason why the disease was created to begin with. So to find their negative beliefs and their false personal lies that they have about themselves is one way to describe it. And then I give lots of homework and tools. So it's a very psychedelic experience.
I bet. So these people say that they go see other people and they get no hope. No one ever really has a way to help them. So when they come to you, it seems weird, but you give them hope in saying that, you know what, I know what's going on and I understand it, and hopefully you can understand it too, and that must be a ray of sunshine.
I think it is for a lot of people. It is. I'm also very honest if I feel that, because eventually we're going to leave our bodies, eventually. And most people leave through disease. We may not be as conscious as many Tibetan monks, so you might be working on that, where we can, when it's our time, we can just slow down our respirations and our pulse and walk out of our bodies, because that's the conscious way to leave, not to have disease take over or get hit by a car or be in a violent, activity that leads to our death.
And this is the way that a lot of sages like to leave this world, is they tell the community at large, hey, August 15th, it's my day, baby. And they would sit down in the town square and they would leave, and then everyone would parade the body to the funeral. So I think that's a great way. I think it's the natural way.
I agree. It's the natural way. It's the healthy way for us to leave, because we want to be aware when we leave too, because there's a lot of transition that's occurring, obviously, as our energy and our molecules are shifting from physical to non-physical. It's a profound moment in our life, in our experience. And so I also do share with people, if I feel that that healing from my perspective for an individual isn't necessarily that their body is going to get better, I will also share that with them as well. And I'm always surprised that they come back to see me, even if I think that their life force isn't going to survive their health condition. So I'm just as honest as I can be with everyone with what I hear, see, and feel.
I think that's very positive. You had said something about seeing their multiple spirit guides. Now, do they know that the spirit guide is there? And I also have a follow-up question. Do the spirit guides sometimes manifest themselves as what we think to be humans, but really it's your spirit guide trying to, let's say you're not listening, he might just be the guy outside that you walk by that gives you that one tidbit and you never see him again?
Yeah. Well, I never had thought about it in terms of spirit guides. I've always thought angels do that, but absolutely, why not? They're more multifaceted than we are. They don't live in a limited physical reality. So absolutely, and I actually really love that idea. I can totally see that happening. I also think that guides talk to other guides. So like your guides are talking to my guides and my guides are talking to you while we're having this interview, so that because you're asking me questions that most people do not ask me when I get interviewed, quite frankly, which I'm so appreciating. I'm enjoying so much, So I think that the guides even communicate with each other, like maybe someone's meant to go to a particular movie or see a different doctor or move to China. And so their guides will talk to their friends' guides, that will allow new conversations to occur to give them opportunities to be open to change.
It's very possible that when people come see you, your guides start to meet them in the outside world and start to maybe make them come back.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's true. I think that I always believe that their guides are letting me know all these deep and beautiful things that I get to understand for a short period of time about them. And I think that's what allows me to help them on, I hope, a level that resonates with them, that does give them that hope, because anything can change at any moment. We are um, more than we could possibly imagine.
We're multifaceted, and around the world, there's always been stories of the spirit guides in every culture, and a lot of people in our culture don't really know about it. So I'd love for you to describe just how someone opens themselves up to their spirit guide.
Sure, sure. That's a great question. I believe that before we come into human form, which is a conscious decision to be in the physical reality, and it's also a conscious decision to reincarnate, to choose our gender, what part of the world we're going to live in, and of course the century, even our parents, everything. I believe we sit down at this beautiful round table, and we also ask people who we believe who are more evolved than us to guide us, because they have free will too. They don't have to guide us. It's a mutual agreement. And so they know everything about us from all of our past lives. They know what it is we want to work on in this lifetime. And their job is to gently, compassionately, and lovingly, remind us to go left if that's the right direction for us. Even if 100 times over and over again we turn right, and then their job is to support us in that decision that we make, because we have free will, and it's the most respected law in all of the universes, I believe. I encourage people to meditate on, having the intention that they're going to meet their spirit guide, and then to allow it to happen in any form. I see them as humans beings, because I love human beings. I'm in love with the human race, and so a lot of things come across in ways that are comfortable and fulfilling and joyful for the individual. They could look like light or plants, or they could look like anything, or there could be a feeling about them. And at the time that the person's having the experience, which I recommend to meditate in water, because we're mostly water, and so our guides connect to us through our water molecules, because it's what we mostly are. Of course, the planet is mostly water as well. So if someone does the meditation in a bathtub or near a river, or while they're paddling in a canoe on a lake, then the intention has a much better opportunity to work. And then I always recommend that people ask for a name. Not that guides, they don't care about names. You could call them peanut butter and jelly, and they would not care. They don't mind at all. I mean, they're more about essence. They feel essence. Names are not a way to describe someone or a relationship or an experience. But humans need something generally to feel like, oh, I'm calling on my guide, Peter, and when we utter the name that comes through, that could be just something from our own personal past that has meaning to us. When we use that name, then the guides know that we're calling for them, because humans tend to overthink and analyze everything to death.
Mm-hmm.
That guides have a hard time. Is she talking about me or the party next week? What is she talking about? So so that's my recommendation anyway.
What I have heard, and the best story that I've come across, is from an Indian man, and the Indians always have the best one, and Indian meaning native. Sorry if it's the wrong term.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the best that I heard from the natives, who keep it very simple, was that this man had spirit guides. One was a seal, one was a bird, and one was a fox, an Arctic fox. And when I asked him how do you summon them, I sing my happy song, he said. And all he did was put himself in a trance, and the trance was embedded in the emotion of love and bliss. So he'd sing this song, he'd go into his trance, raise his vibration to bliss, and then they'd appear. They would appear when he was happy enough.
Wow. Wow. I think that's absolutely true and wonderful advice, because guides vibrate in a different essence than humans. They don't get bogged down in worry and doubt and fear like we do. And so you're right, to connect with them, your frequency has to be elevated enough. I mean, they'll lower theirs as much as they can, but of course, because they're non physical, they can't really embody the physical. I think that's a fantastic idea. It's a
I
great
just
idea.
loved how simple it was.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So, um, do you think that nowadays this is going to become more of an option for people in the world? Because I see a lot of people that are waking up to this, and I'd love to believe that this is just going to, I mean, really just peak at one point and just take off.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the modality healing touch, which was started by nurses quite a while ago, I think 25 years ago, it's now recognized in the US as a nationally accredited modality in every state in the union, which is kind of fascinating. In fact, even the Center for Disease Control and other governmental health agencies are actually doing research on healing touch to see if its effects on disease and health. So absolutely, I believe that I think we're making a trend in a very beautiful, it's happening maybe in a way that seems subtle in some regards. I think for some people, the awakening that's occurring now is probably a little shocking, not for you or for I, but for some people who haven't necessarily really felt their feelings or asked themselves the hard questions or wondered why they make certain choices that they're making. I think things are getting very loud for them. So it's a more challenging time for them right now. And probably also one of the reasons why they're seeking out a mystic or changing their diet or finding a sustainable way to live their life because they're finding that they're not happy in the choices that they've made thus far.
The changes are slow and gradual, but when you look back in the years after going by a couple years, you actually see how shocking and radical the change actually was.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yes.
So the power is held inside each and every single individual. And
I yeah.
go for it, go for it.
Yeah, I believe people heal themselves, even though, I love the term healer and I don't mind being referred to in that way. I believe that every person heals themselves, absolutely, and they have the power to do so.
This might just be the case that the body is seeking healness, and since the person, I wouldn't want to say refuses because they do find their way to you, they are not as open enough, so the body willingly seeks out another person that's going to listen to it.
Absolutely. That's what I feel like. It used to be when I would be in grocery stores before I had a practice. I would find ways, I would take my cart and I would find ways to go crash into someone in another aisle because their colon would be talking to me. And really, and they really needed a colonoscopy, like quick, or an herbalist, which would be great, but it's hard to take people from conventional medicine to holistic medicine like that. So at least we want them to have a colonoscopy so we can get the polyp removed or whatever is going on. And so I would, I remember how stressed out I used to be in public because everyone's body or a lot of people's bodies would talk to me. I had to really perfect the skill to stay present when I'm not at work and just be in my own body. And my guides have reminded me often that I'm in the yellow pages. If someone really wants to find me, they could, and that I need to, be in my own life for me to remain healthy and well. Yeah.
Do you sometimes meet people, see their aura, and know that instantly you have to talk to them?
Yeah, the place where because I have a rule with the universe, because I have this constant dialogue going on all the time, like with all kinds of beings that are not in physical form. And so I have a rule that when I'm not working, no one is allowed to disturb me unless it's an emergency. And as a nurse, that means like a real emergency. Like my kids always complained that I didn't care if they got a cut or bruise unless they were hemorrhaging because I'm like, oh, you'll be fine. But what happens in public venues is usually medium work. Like this one time, I was eating dinner with a girlfriend, and I went to the restroom, and I was in a restaurant, and I went to the restroom, and while I was sitting on the toilet, literally, a woman who's dead came into my stall and started to talk to me, and she told me that her husband was in the restaurant, and she wanted me to talk to him because he was in enormous grief about her passing. She had died suddenly. She told me her age. She showed me what hospital she had died in. She told me that she had had a chronic condition for years, but then had some acute experience. Like she was doing okay, she was maintained, I think it was actually liver failure. She might have had hepatitis C. I'm not really sure. But she went into the hospital and she died. And she was like in her 30s, and they were madly in love. And I told her, I go, I'm not going to go to every table in this restaurant to find out which one just lost his wife. And I said, here's my address and my phone. And we're having this mental telepathic conference. And I have him call me on Monday. It'll be on the house. I'm happy to help him. And then she just disappeared. And so then I walked out to the table where my girlfriend was, and there was a gentleman sitting at our table. And she introduced me to him, and he said that he was with his twin brother, whose wife had just died. And my girlfriend had invited them both to sit at our table. So he got up to go get his brother. And I said to her, I go, oh, I think his wife just talked to me in the bathroom. She goes, great, perfect. So, yeah. So he comes to the table, and I wasn't going to say a word because I used to be really shy. I'm a very shy person. This was a few years ago. And his wife started to scream at me. She was screaming in my ear. Nobody else could hear her, but I could. And she was terrified because he was drinking a lot and he was driving fast. And she was afraid he was going to die himself. And it wasn't his time. And so she was pleading with me to have a conversation with him. So, of course, I did. And I started to tell him that I was a medium and that his dead wife was talking to me. And he just starts crying. And we're using all the napkins on the table. And long story short, he was very frustrated that she wasn't talking to him. But I explained to him that he was too sad and despondent and that her vibration was much higher than his. And so they couldn't meet, energetically so that she could relay the message. So she worked very hard to find someone like me, unsuspectedly in the bathroom, so that I could have this conversation. He agreed to seek grief counseling and, get some therapy, in the coming days, which I believe he did. I checked on him intuitively, and I think he's doing well. So.
I mean, what an event to have happen when you're just out with your friends.
I know, right? So,
and this happens often, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have a lot of strict rules, so it's got to be a real emergency. So yeah, they have to be kind of aggressive with me. But it certainly does happen. And of course, when you've had an event like that or something similar, I hope that I'm open enough at the right moment so that I can be available when someone's in crisis and share my dinner table with them if necessary.
Well, okay, now I'm going to bring something up personal that I've had, and I'd like to hear some of your advice now that you told me all this. My spirit guides, mostly plants, and in some instances they are animal spirits, but that happened on the West Coast, so I don't know if they're linked or what. I just know that when I was on the West Coast, I had spirit guides that were animals. Here it's plants, but I had met an orb once. It was a blue orb.
Wow.
A blue orb with a figure standing behind it that you couldn't see because the orb was so bright. You only saw a figure. And when I saw this, I was terrified, and I didn't understand. Well, I thought I didn't know what was happening. No one tells me these things are meant to happen. So it comes in my room. I just go stiff, and I try to scream, and I can't. And the thing basically does this, and goes and backs out of the room. And when I leave the room, my dad's in the room, but he's not in the room.
Oh.
It's not my dad. It's just he took the form of someone that I wouldn't be scared of.
Right. So I think that the orb is your primary guide, actually. I do think, we have multiple guides.
I was asking for the primary, and that's what I got.
Yeah, that's your primary guide. And so the primary guide can never leave your side. Your other guides can go back to the round table, because let's say before you came to Earth, let's say someone says, oh, I'm not going to have children, so there's no plan in the mix. And then you come to Earth and you change your mind and go, no, I want to have a brood of kids and I want to adopt some from Africa. So all of a sudden your guides have to run back to the round table to find the right souls, who are going to have the best experience, right? But your primary guide can't. Your guide has to stay with you. Blue is a phenomenal color in energy health. It's the color of the throat chakra. It's the most powerful vortex in the physical body. It's about speaking your truth, about saying what you really feel. And it correlates to the fifth layer of the aura, which is called the divine plan, which is all about one's life purpose. Because when we speak our truth, we allow ourselves to vibrate to that incredible body of energy that surrounds us about our natural gifts and talents and our purpose. So I personally think that your primary guide is thrilled with all the decisions that you make, with the conscious way that you live your life. I think you've embodied exactly what you were supposed to. And the reason why your guide goes like this is because when you feel those feelings of fear, like the next time it happens, because it will happen again, I'd love for you to tell, you can even speak out loud. I think speaking out loud's important so they don't have to try to figure out what our brain is thinking. You can say, like, I'm scared to, what, scared to heck, scared to hell, scared to whatever word you want to use. But I really want to have this experience anyway, because our guides respect our emotions, even though most human beings don't respect their own feelings. That's why we make decisions, not I don't mean you or I, but collectively we make nuclear power plants and we put them by the ocean. I mean, like, who is feeling their feelings when they do that? Nobody is feeling their feelings. And so our feelings are that fear that comes up. Your guide is respecting you and backing away to honor you so that you can calm down. So in that moment, if you can say out loud, I'm scared to bejeebas, but I don't care. I really want to have this experience. Then your guide will know that even though you're feeling a temporary fright, your guide will stay and continue on with the dialogue or whatever form of connection that you're going to have with them, which would be so fun for you.
Oh, I've had one experience where I thought I was dying. I had died. I didn't die because I'm here now, but I had died and I had met myself, my higher self, and that was a beautiful experience. But to see a orb enter my room was something else entirely. It was just
fantastic.
So, I mean, after this conversation, I'm gonna go and like pray to a flame or something, like come back. But
I already see it coming back. It's your primary guide, so it has never left your side. It's with you all the time.
And whenever someone speaks truth, the weirdest thing happens to me. It's the thing that vibes me the most. My hair stands on end. My tears, my eyes water up. It always happens. Not when I see someone love someone else. I mean, that's a great feeling, but it's not as powerful as I see someone stand up for what they believe in. When someone stands up for what they believe in, it's better than love in a sense, even though I know it's the same.
And that's that whole reason why blue is a big part of your primary guide, because you believe in truth. You believe in expressing truth, which is all about justice. Like it's crazy that Americans, that we don't have health care for our country. It's embarrassing.
With the amount of knowledge that you guys have.
Right. And other countries like your country has shown us how to do it. It's not a complicated. I mean, I'm sure it's complicated.
We could still refine ours because we're still basically giving them pills.
Of course, but at least everyone has access to whatever form of healthcare that your government is believing in, where our country doesn't still have that. And so when we look at someone like President Obama, who makes a decision to bring Obamacare, there's a resonance about that, even though it's not the best plan, even though it's still not activated in our country yet. There's something about it that every time I see the words, or I see him utter it, or I see another person talk about it, I am just filled up with joy, because it's that or something better is meant to happen. It's justice. It's a birthright to be able to have basic care for our beautiful bodies.
Yeah, turning someone away because they do not have insurance just seems like you're not listening to your feelings, because no rightful doctor would say that.
Right, exactly. Absolutely.
I want to ask you about colors, though, since you brought it up. What does it mean that people, and I'm assuming in my own personal life, I do think that people have and resonate a certain tone. This is their color. These are their complementary colors, and these are the colors they clash with.
No, I love that. See, I don't have that vision that you have. I definitely see color in people. I see the colors of the chakras inside of them, and I see where their color is. Is it vibrant? Is it clear? So like the third eye is its highest vibrational color is deep indigo. And so when I'm looking at someone's third eye, the darker the purple is, I know that they're incredibly psychic. The back portion of the third eye it's the receptor of psychic phenomena. So that fourth dimension, the psychic realm, has access to the back of the human head, right at the occiput where that bump is. And so when I look at the back portion of someone's third eye, because the chakras to me turn into cones, the orbs split into these beautiful, beautiful cones. Um, if it's really, really gray, I know the person is highly self-critical, which is the opposite of intuition. You have to love yourself and appreciate and value your being to allow yourself to have access um, to this wonderful wisdom that we all have the ability to connect with. And then a very clear back of the third eye means that the person it isn't allowing themselves. It's open, but they're not allowing themselves to take in the psychic phenomena that it's available to them. So the colors are speaking to me all the time, especially the shade of the color, the gray, the clarity, the vibrancy. So I don't see the clashing that you do. I like that. I would love to see that and understand it. That sounds cool.
Well, you understand so much, and it must be from this process of you starting to delve into it and having the extraordinary become more ordinary, and you're starting. You describe the body as if you've been in there with a camera probing around, looking at things, but I guess it comes from this process.
Yeah, it's just a natural for me, just like how you can look at plants and love them. One of my children, my middle daughter, loves plants too. I had no idea. She's been studying organic agriculture for several years now, and she loves them. We're on a walk and she's talking to the weeds, and so she has this natural, like you, this natural ability to commune with the energy of plant life. To you, it's alive, and it makes complete sense to you. That's why you're taking care of the seeds of our planet so that they can stay authentic and pure, and so that their micro development isn't adjusted. And you know that it's so vitally important that the seeds call you. They literally call you all hours of the night, actually, even. Well, they do. They call you. And they're calling the right person because you actually really care, and you will put your best effort to safeguard the food and the plant life on our planet for human consumption for generations to come.
How I first started to get into it is I noticed that the plants were giving geometric shapes, and they were saying who they were with their shapes, and the shapes and the colors, of course. And the plants that stood out the most were 5 petals. 5 petals is showing life, and 5 is obviously the number of life. That's why we have 5 fingers, and those are the ones that called the most to me because they were the ones that continued human life.
Wow. Well, you know what's fascinating is that chakra that's blue is the 5th chakra, the one that your guide holds the orb for, and really, and then the 5th layer of the field, it's the 5th layer, the divine plan, the purpose, and in numerology, 5 is a master number. So people who love 5, they're masters in their craft. They're meant to be leaders and teachers in the way that they experience their craft.
When you said that he offered the orb, he's not the orb?
Well, he could be the orb, but to me, I see him offering the orb. But remember, I see things as in human form.
Yeah.
So I see this kind of shadowed figure holding this incredible orb, this multi-dimensional orb. And it could be that he's the orb and he has someone who carries him around.
I just never thought of it that way, that you'd actually see him. If he just gave me the orb, I would probably see him.
Yeah, it's a man, because I usually see gender and kind of age and then personality and even clothes. He's not wearing any clothes. He's in shadow. I don't see any hair on him, on his head. He has beautiful blue eyes. That's the one thing I see in his physicality. And he's holding this incredible orb. And then maybe he is the orb, or the orb is him, or it doesn't really matter, really. It's really how you perceive it and how you experience and connect to that bliss as you described it in that lovely Native American. That's absolutely correct. Wherever the bliss is, that's the connection. And how we ultimately describe it or perceive it doesn't really matter as long as it's comforting to us.
That's exactly it. It's as long as you're following your own path, you can't be wrong.
Right, absolutely. Can't make a mistake, no.
Well, this has been such an amazing talk.
Thank you, me too. I loved it. Thank you so much for finding me and looking me up and asking for this interview. I've loved every moment of it.
Would you mind if we would do this again sometime down the line?
I love it. I would love it. I think it would be great.
Because I'm going to definitely get on I'm gonna try and master as much as I can, so that next time we talk, I got more to offer, and then hopefully I know you have more to offer, and I just didn't ask the right questions yet.
You asked fantastic questions. Are you kidding? I already said I don't get to answer these questions in an interview, and I love these questions. These are questions that are about home for me.
Hmm.
So I love them. They're beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for all your work on the planet. I so appreciate the work that you do. Thank you so much.
Right back at you.
Thank
I really appreciate it. And everyone out there, empower yourself. Get yourself a spirit friend.
you. Oh, thank you.
Bye, guys.